as always, with me, I have Jen V. Jen, how are you? Oh, I lost her. Her call dropped. She's on the road. Said she's driving through rainstorms. So there she is. That was quick. Hey, Jen, I lost you there for a second.
It's echoing, so I thought it was me, but I called back and it's still doing it.
Yeah, it is echoing. It's echoing big time. Big time.
I think we need to talk about forgiveness twice.
Yeah, we'll talk about it twice. There it is. Okay, so tonight we're trying to talk about double forgiveness. Double forgiveness.
It's got to be from my end. So let me switch things around, and I will call in just a minute. I apologize. I got to figure this out.
No. Yeah. For everyone listening, we're trying to work on a new way to connect the simulcast together with this one, with the direct connection. So just bear with us for a few minutes while we get it worked out.
All right. I think I'm here. Okay. So let me do it this way, guys. I need a mixing board. That's all there is to it. I need to figure out how to do this. When we get the laptop, it should work too. I'll just have to bring the laptop in here and have one going on one and one on the other. So let's call in, guys, right now.
Blogtalk Radio.
Audio.
Welcome to Blogtalk Radio. Please hold.
Is the audio okay, guys?
So now he does simulcast every week of our show. Unmuted, and he is back with us. Welcome back, Matthias.
All right. Is that better?
Yeah. It's better. We're trying. I explained everything, and we're trying to get it worked out. I was just talking about your channel and stuff like that. So I've done all the explaining about the simulcast, and so we're good to go.
Awesome. Well, I do apologize. We'll get it worked out.
Yeah, we'll get it worked out. You know, it's an ongoing process. We've tried several different things before, and well, you could probably explain the problem more than I can, but it's two different connections, and we're trying to do the simulcast so that it sounds clear to everyone that's listening, whether they're listening to Talking Doctrine on your side of the simulcast part or listening to True Story Live, just straight from the archives or listening now.
Exactly.
All right, Jen,
cool for a second. It was like slow reverb. We should have start singing.
I know. We have had fun in the past. A few times that's happened for short periods of time. But if you're trying to present information, it's fun.
It is fun.
But when people are trying to discuss stuff, then it gets crazy. It takes the seriousness out of it, I guess. So here we are. All right. So Jen, tell people how they can call if they want to talk to us.
Awesome. Okay, so you guys that are listening, if you'd like to call in and listen through your phone, or if you want to get on air with us and chat with us, the number is 1-319-527-6092, and you can press 1 to be let on and be a part of the discussion.
Thank you so much, Jen. Appreciate that. Also, a little call out for Linda Clary and the Facebook page Flat Out Grace. She is really, really awesome, and we love that group over there. So definitely take a look at that, read the pin post, and if you see anything that may apply to you, definitely join that family over there. And if you're listening to the show and you're part of the group already, then definitely post in the comment section in that page if you have a question or a comment that you would like shared on the air, and we will get to you. Alrighty. All right, so today we're talking about forgiveness and how important that is for everyone to understand that that concept and to apply that in everyday life. And this is really a great topic for me because I certainly have had a lot of experience in learning this valuable lesson of how important it is to forgive.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to the show and you've had some experiences like that, we definitely want to hear your stories. We're each going to tell a little story from our own lives of how we have experienced either learning how to forgive someone else or even maybe someone's not forgiven you. How do you live with that? I mean, it's both sides. It's a multifaceted emotion. It also is a very deep emotion. I'll just start out with a really quick story. One of the first lessons in forgiveness I ever learned wasn't actually directly including me. It was my grandfather. My mom's dad had an ongoing feud with his sister, which spanned decades, and it was over a bit of furniture from when their mom died, and they were splitting up their inheritance. And my grandfather received some dining furniture, and his sister wanted it, and she tried all different kinds of ways to get it, and she tried to finagle that from my grandfather, and he really wanted it. It was given to him. He inherited it, and it was something that that he wanted to have in his home. And he'd forgotten about it a long time ago, but she quit talking to him, and would dodge him at family reunions, and he reached out to her several times, and it went on for so long, and I felt so bad for him because it seemed like he was a pretty happy-lucky guy. Happy-lucky. He was happy-go-lucky. And so this was the only thing that I've ever really seen him get upset about, this rift between he and his sister. And his sister actually, she got sick and went to the hospital, and she had some cognitive issues. And while she was having one of these episodes, she actually called my grandpa and was crying about the rift between them and said, "I'm sick. I'm in the hospital. I don't know if I'm going to survive, but I really want to talk about this and get it all taken care of. Can you come see me?" Of course, he agreed to do that. The problem was, by the time I think it was like an hour and a half drive to the hospital where she was being kept, and he got there. By the time he had gotten there, she had forgotten that she called him.
Oh, no.
And had reverted back to her anger and frustration, and told him that she wanted him to leave, and that she never would have called him at all to work this out, regardless of the situation, whether she was sick or not.
Oh gosh.
And they never talked after that. She did succumb to ill health and passed on. And he lived a while after that, and sometimes we'd be in the middle of doing something, and he would get a little tear in his eye, and I knew exactly what he was thinking about. This rift with the sister, that now that she was gone, they would never be able to work it out in his mind, while he was alive. So, and he said to me, so this is the point I'm getting to of where I learned this lesson, and I never forgot what he said. He said, "Jason, don't ever let anything come between you and someone that you love, no matter what. I never forgotten that, and I never have. When I have fights with family and we disagree on something, I don't let it go on my end too long, even if it means that I have to be the one to swallow my pride or quote unquote be a bigger man or whatever. I have many times gone to someone that I felt wronged me and asked for forgiveness for my part. In a lot of things, it's two-sided. I'm not saying every situation both parties are at fault, but I think in most, if one or both people can take some responsibility for the situation that's going on, it can go a long way towards bringing, back to a balanced relationship.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually what the Bible tells you to do. Jesus himself says that if you've been wronged, you go to your brother and you tell him about it. You talk to him about it. And that forgiveness as a believer, we should be so willing and ready to forgive that we should actually be chasing them down. Because the forgiveness it's two ways. It's not just for the person who we're forgiving. It's just as much for them as it is for us. Without forgiveness, what happens is bitterness. And so there's a real benefit for us, whether the other person even appreciates it or not. It is good to forgive. And if you're saved, then of course we forgive for Christ's sake, if for nothing else. For as Christ forgave us, we forgive others. And it actually helps, whether the person's saved or lost, it will help them one way or the other. If it's a saved person and you're forgiving them, it will help them in being able to grow in the Lord and seeing what real forgiveness is. If it's a lost person, it gives them the grace and mercy that God has already bestowed on them. If they would just believe it, then they could receive it. But when we have a real life situation that we can give them an example from what happens in life, and then point them to Christ through it, be like, I can only forgive you because Christ has forgiven me. And so there's a bunch of different reasons why forgiveness is a good thing, but the main one is keeps bitterness at bay.
Right, because bitterness is absolutely a cancer. It absolutely is a cancer. I mean, I've seen it. The one little story I told was just a small part of what I have seen happen in the lives of someone that where the unforgiveness has become bitterness, and the bitterness has taken over their lives completely. Because it really can.
Well, that's actually probably the worst thing. It's probably the worst sin that saints do, in the fact that they don't openly forgive the way that we ought. And the reason why it's the worst is because it affects the most. Yeah. When we have a root of bitterness and we're not showing the love one to another, it discourages the saints, but it will deter the lost. When they see this bitterness of the unforgiveness, like literally practicing the opposite of what you preach, because Christ preached forgiveness, it makes them, the hypocrisy flag goes up. And so it deters when we can't forgive our brethren and it bleeds into the bitterness. It's what really affects our ability to help others come to the Lord, probably the most, when it comes to what a lot of saints are dealing with, and not taking it and giving it to God, but holding on to it and having it affect their spiritual walk.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when anyone, whether saved or unsaved, you see someone that claims to be saved and they're living a life of unforgiveness in any way, it can destroy the witness completely.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a fantastic point, and I completely agree with that. I mean, we've seen it happen.
Right.
People that hold that feeling in their heart towards someone, it's a blight. It's a disease. And it can spread. I've
heard it say bitterness is an acid that destroys the container.
Yeah.
Wow. I hadn't heard that one. That was nice. I like that.
Me neither.
Right.
Bitterness is an acid that destroys the container.
Exactly.
That's good. I can imagine
that one.
Yeah, I can imagine it's one of the things that grieves God's heart the most, because, forgiveness is a huge part of, Jesus came to forgive our sins, and it's like, if we're forgiven of everything we've ever done, everything we ever could do, accept that forgiveness, if that's the very thing we're withholding from other people, it's kind of like an oxymoron in a sense. It just doesn't make sense. But it's so human, it's human, but, God can really help us develop those forgiveness muscles, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've been amazed in my life on a few occasions, like when you see someone whose child went through a really horrific crime of some sort, and the TV cameras are interviewing the parents of this person, after they come out of a courtroom situation, and it's usually either one thing or another. Either they're really, really angry and they say that they hope that person that took their precious baby away burns in hell forever, or you see the complete opposite, which is forgiveness. And when I was young and I would see that, I didn't understand how you could possibly be that forgiving. And I always put myself in a position of being a parent or a brother or an uncle or whatever, long before in reality I was. I thought, well, if that happened to someone that but they are. I've seen people that have every right from a human perspective to be angry with God, for whatever reason, but they choose not to be. And first of all, I just want to say it's not only wise, but it's prudent to not hold animosity towards God. But, when I see people make that choice, it's just fantastic. And it shows God's grace towards us and forgiveness. And certainly the Bible presents several scenarios in which forgiveness, even through parables. You have the forgiveness of the servant who was forgiven a great amount of money, and then he runs into a servant that owes him way, way less. And you know which one I'm talking about, right?
I'm trying to think. There's one that if we don't forgive, he won't forgive us.
Yeah, this one specifically is the one where the guy owed his master a debt that he could never pay.
Right. Oh, yeah. 10,000 talents actually. And when he was forgiven that, he then go on. When he was forgiven that, he then went to somebody who owed him way less, and would not forgive him. And it actually says that that guy got thrown into hell. And so workers of iniquity will use this passage to say that you must forgive, and if you don't forgive, you can lose your salvation. But what the passage is really explaining is that only through Christ, only by being forgiven much, are we able to forgive in the first place. So it's through Christ in which we are able to forgive. And for lost people who have not received the forgiveness that they've actually been given already, but they haven't received it because they don't believe it, they don't have the ability to really forgive. They can't forgive without forgetting, or forgive and forget. You know, they can forgive if vengeance is taken. They can forgive if the debt is already that's owed is paid. They don't forgive freely. It's only those of us who have received freely who can give freely.
Right. And now you mentioned something that brings up an interesting question. So you said forget, because the adage is forgive and forget, right? That's what you hear. You know, you should forgive and forget. Now, in every instance where I've forgiven someone for something they did, I'm sure many of those things are reasons why I needed to forgive someone. I'm sure some of them, like from when I was younger, I'm sure I don't remember them all, but I have to admit that I can easily bring to mind times when I've forgiven someone for something they've done wrong. Now, I have no unforgiveness in my heart whatsoever, but yet my brain still cannot forget the instance of what they did.
Yeah. So,
Matthias, you're not saying that we are required to forget. I mean, you know, to remember it in a way that you keep bringing it up again and again. I mean, there's no purpose in that. I'm just saying to wipe it from your memory.
Right. Well, that's kind of what that means. To forget it means to never bring it up against the person. Right. You can't necessarily forget it, and that even means internally to yourself. Like, don't bring it up against them, even to yourself. Like, oh, I remember when they did that to me, so I'm not going to trust. No, you haven't forgiven them if that's still coming up.
Yes. And I want to talk about that. I don't want to interrupt your thought process here, but I want to talk about that, about people forgiving themselves, too. That's something I want to delve into a little bit.
Right. That's absolutely important. If you've been forgiven, you need to realize that you need to forgive yourself. And yes, we talk about that for sure. But the thing is everyone knows. Most people know the Lord's Prayer, as they put it. Yeah. And they don't realize exactly what they're praying there. And so,
forgive our trespasses,
as we forgive those who trespass against us. So if you're not going to forgive and forget, do you want God to? If you're going to forgive and bring it up against people in the future, is that how you want God to forgive your trespasses? To forgive you now and bring it up against you in the future?
Oh, no, please no.
You got to remember that prayer is an example of how we should pray. And Jesus says we should be praying, Lord, forgive those who trespass against us. Forgive those our debts as we forgive us our debts as we forgive those who trespass against us. So we are really saying we want to be forgiven the same way we forgive others.
That's right.
And so,
and he is faithful.
Right. No. Amen. Amen. So it's not about, like, God's omniscient, omnipresent. If he were to forget, then, that would make him not God. Like, intellectually, he doesn't forget. But the fact that he died for the sin on the cross, every single one, they are as far away from us as east is from the west, and that they will never be brought up again before us. Maybe in the here and now with a chastisement, but never, not even at our judgment seat, will God bring up our sins again to use against us. He actually forgave it. He actually paid the cost. Because what is forgiveness? Forgiveness actually means to bear the burden. And when you look at the word, oh no, hold on one second.
Okay. Sound like little circus. Right. I don't think there could have been any more perfect timing, though. I mean,
I know, right? That sounded like you last week. I was kidding.
I thought he was at a laundromat at first. When I honestly thought, is he? I mean, I knew he wasn't, but it sounded for a minute like there was a laundromat in the background. I didn't want to say anything, but I was like, wow, that's
Right, no, it's the kids. It's the kids, and then apparently they just hit face to face. No.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it's not. Then I got another one who's dancing with me now. Here, come on, honey.
That's good. Yeah, I hate it when I run at full speed and hit someone else, and they're right in their face.
Really?
Happened last week at the Wendy's. I was at the Wendy's.
Oh, no.
We wanted that double burger so much, just right in the face.
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding. I don't go to Wendy's.
Yeah, I don't either. They always get my order wrong. It's always the drive-thru, and I'm like 10 minutes away by the time I realize. I'm like, what?
That's the first mistake. They say that you shouldn't go through the drive-thru.
Yeah.
That's where they mess up the orders. You go through the drive-thru.
Yeah. It's not good.
Right, because they're hoping people aren't going to look into the bag till they get down the road, so they won't turn around.
That's right.
Exactly.
But if that happens, then
we'll just forgive them.
Giving.
We will forgive them.
Yeah. That's very true.
So let me ask you this. Ms. Dice. We do have a few non-believers that listen to the show. Okay, so what I have always wanted to do on True Story Live, I didn't want to pigeonhole the show and make it just be a show just to edify believers. I mean, the show has always been to bring information to people that otherwise wouldn't believe, and the possibility of sharing the gospel with them in some ways. It's not particularly a gospel show or a preaching show or anything like that, but we always end up talking about spiritual things, and that's great. I don't want to stop that. But it has been brought to my attention by one of the listeners that they would like to hear things sometimes from the perspective of someone that is unsaved. So in the example of our topic for tonight, which is forgiving people, it might be a little harder for us because, the three of us on the panel, we're all believers. We all, we have lived as non-believers, but for me, it was a very short period of time. So I can't comment as much of how it feels to forgive people because I was young. And I didn't hold any resentment toward people at that age. I certainly have learned while growing up about forgiveness, but it was not from a perspective of a non-believer. So do either of you want to try to answer that question? Did I explain it in a way? Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Kind of. Are you, so what, like, maybe like a perspective of a non-believer toward the subject of forgiveness? Is that what you're asking?
the subject of forgiveness, or how important is it for someone? Because Matthias brought it up, and it's a valid point. For believers, we forgive because God forgives us. But what if someone is not a believer, so they don't have that reason to forgive? What other reasons are there for someone who's not a believer to forgive anyone?
Oh, that's tough.
Know, like when I wasn't saved for a while, and I was just trying to think of things that had happened to me as a non-saved person, young person, like young adult. And I think, and I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, before I was saved, it just was so backwards. It was like, it was the right thing to do not to forgive someone if they had done you wrong. That it was kind of, it was kind of ludicrous to forgive them if they actually had done something wrong toward you or to you. And not that I would have come out and said it like that, but I think in my mind, I wrote it off as, well, I have every right to be mad. So if I want to be mad, I'm going to be mad. And it did never occur to me that that it was doing me. I didn't really, I don't know, I wasn't thinking about my spirit. I wasn't thinking about my relationship with God because I didn't really have one. I just felt justified to be angry, and luckily it never went out of control to where it ruled my life. You know what I mean?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So you said it. You said it right there that you felt like you had the right to be angry, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge part of it, which is sometimes we're angry at people for a reason, and we might tell the story to someone else, and they go, "Well, yeah, I wouldn't forgive them either." You need to stay away from. And some people will even encourage you to take some sort of revenge.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about specifically about revenge, but I'm just saying, it can go to that. Some people take unforgiveness to the next levels. Not only am I angry about what you did to me, but I'm going to do something back to you and hope that you feel the same way you made me feel. So from a reason that someone might not forgive someone else if they don't have a more moral, well, that's not necessarily immoral. You said that you thought it was the right thing, but you also felt like you had the right to be angry. Yeah.
Yeah, the right to be angry. And I had a thought, but it slid in my brain. I think as a lost person, I remember, and this still raises its ugly head sometimes, and I have to catch it and ask God to forgive me. But you know how you can come from a place, especially as a lost person, where being angry feels good? Like,
oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And reliving it and getting angry again, it's almost like, I don't know, isn't that strange? I don't know if you guys have felt that before. But I've this situation, and it's just odd because now, like, when I get angry now, it's the worst feeling. I want to throw it up. Like, it's just not good. But But every once in a while, I have to say, every once in a while, that something happens to me or somebody does something to me, that old person wants to come up, and I'm like, nope, like, no. And it is mixed. It's already, like, there's already a conviction attached to it, which I think helps catch it and be like, okay, I need to bring this under the cross. I need to repent, and I need to continually pray and forgive, because honestly, being able to forgive people through knowing what Christ did for me and through prayer and sometimes fasting even has been my saving grace when it comes to being able to forgive, because it doesn't come from my flesh. It comes from God in me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and that's actually what I was getting at. I was gonna say, like, this one's a tough one to try to talk about from an unsaved perspective, because it's,
I know,
you can't really forgive unless you know what that is by having received it by nothing of our own. Forgiveness is one-sided. It's never two-sided.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, somebody must have the Spirit of God to be able to honestly and biblically speaking do that. The world has its own definition for forgiveness, and the Bible has its own too, or a different one. Same with love. I don't think people can truly love, if they haven't received the love of Christ.
Yeah.
Like I
What
thought
do you think the world's definition of forgiveness is?
the world's
Like, what do you think that is?
That if somebody wrongs the right, then I'll forgive them.
Right, recompense.
Yeah.
But it's the opposite way around. True forgiveness happens before the other person even considers that they need it.
Anything wrong, or
Yeah, how many times have you gone and told someone that you forgive them, and they're like, "What are you talking about, dude?"
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea. They have no idea that they did anything wrong. Has that ever happened to either one of you?
Actually, yeah, one time.
Yeah, it happened to me. I was so bad, and I felt like I had to go finally talk to her brother who did something that really, really, really pissed me off. And I went back to him and said, "Hey, man, it's been, he said, yeah, I haven't talked to you in a while." And I said, "Yeah, it's taken me a long time to get to this point." So, "What are you talking about, man?" "Well, such and such, and so you did this and did that." And he goes, "Dude, I what?" He didn't. He had no concept of that. What I had built up into my head and what I was so hurt over. I mean, what he did was completely not intentional. I mean, he still hurt my feelings, and I was still angry about it. But when someone says, "I didn't mean to do that at all," I mean, it pretty much diffuses the anger.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're aware of it and if they're aware of it and they deny ever doing it and they refuse to apologize, that's a different thing. But when you actually get to the point to actually tell someone what they did, and like, "Oh man," and you can tell that they're genuinely sorry, I mean, the anger just leaves like that. It just dissipates.
And what happens when you
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
I was going to say, what happens when you finally confront them and they don't even remember doing it? Have you had that? You're like, "I don't even have any recollection of doing that," and then you're like, "I've been stewing about this thing."
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the problem that you run into if you're a drinker. If you party with other people, that happens quite often, actually, when they forget what they've done. They forget the events of the night before, and then the world thinks it's kind of funny. So, "Oh man, you remember what you did last night?" And the guy's like, "No, what'd I do?" And then, "So you did this, that." "So I blacked out, man." And it's like they think it's funny. It's funny that they drink so much they don't remember what they did the night before. But some of the stuff that people do when they're that drunk and they don't remember, it's not funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not funny. I mean, even to the point of people drinking and driving and killing people, waking up in jail the next day and not remember doing it. I actually heard a testimony like that, where a guy, I mean, he's a fairly decent guy. He wasn't a career drunk driver, but he went out with friends one night and drank, and he killed someone. Ran into someone and woke up literally from him telling the story. He woke up in a prison cell.
Wow.
And didn't have any memory of it. And of course, his testimony, he's no longer in jail, and his testimony is really, really great. I wish I could remember the guy's name.
Wow.
But he eventually got let out, and they reduced some of the charges and stuff, and it completely turned this guy's life around because of what had happened. And he goes around basically telling people a story. I mean, there's a cautionary tale of what not to do with drinking. I mean, if you're going to drink, that's one thing, but if you're drinking and driving, that's a completely different issue. But that story too, I mean, he talked a lot about forgiveness because he was forgiven by the family of the person who he accidentally killed. They were believers.
Wow. And you know what? That's one of the most powerful testimonies. I've watched a couple of, and not that I was out looking for it, I just stumbled across, a few videos through the past couple of years of people, someone like that, having killed somebody. And I think there was one where their kid got murdered by this guy. And in the courtroom, I think one of them, the dad got up and he spoke to the guy that killed his son and totally forgave him. And I was bawling. I just, and it's just so powerful, forgiveness. Giving it and receiving it. It's just such an amazingly powerful thing. Can just change lives. And, golly.
I think even from the world's perspective, when you see a movie or a TV show where there's this big rift between characters, and then at the end there's a reconciliation or forgiveness, even from that standpoint, it still touches a place in a lot of people's hearts, even if they don't fully understand from like our perspective, from the perspective of believers.
Hey, baby, are you okay?
Have you guys seen the movie Crash? Did y'all see that?
No, I haven't.
I get confused because there's Crash. Is that the movie with the weird movie with the cars and they're into weird kinky stuff with the accidents and James Dean's vehicle, all that stuff? Is that the name of that movie?
No, this is, I want to say it was like in the 2000s, but it had like Sandra Bullock and
yeah.
But it kind of had this, the theme to the movie, it kind of was like this domino effect where some bad things happened to people and it affected other people, kind of like a ripple effect. But there was a kind of vein of forgiveness in the story, and like by the end of it, I was bawling because again, it just, some things happened to some of the characters in the movie that were just horrible, and you're right. It's just such a powerful thing when someone's done really wrong too, and that they're forgiven, and no strings attached, no, hey, you owe me, and once you pay me back, I'll forgive you. None of that. It was just straight up forgiveness.
Yeah,
just pretty
right. So if you make it up to me, so from the world's perspective, then from an unsaved perspective, then a person would forgive someone else if they made whatever it was that they did wrong right in some way, right?
Right, that's the loss. That's the world's definition of it.
That's what we're talking about right now.
Exactly right.
The world, from the world's perspective.
Right.
Is there any other reason other than without recompense would an unsaved person have any reason to forgive someone else? Because we've already touched on that.
Well, not
really.
We even have I got somebody in the chat room over here that says if you forgive someone, they'll just do it again and again and again. No point in that. From
good.
From a lost person's perspective, it almost seems pointless to forgive. I mean, where is that?
You're a doormat. You're a doormat then when you do that.
But you don't forgive in order for someone to not do it again. That's not the right motivation. You know what I mean? Like your motivation shouldn't be, I'm going to forgive them so that they'll be so appreciative that they won't treat me bad again. You know what I mean? Because that's just asking for trouble. Don't you think?
No, I completely agree. But someone from the world might not necessarily have that perspective. I'm really trying to separate the two. You're absolutely right. Again, if we're believers and we're trying to be Christ-like, then we're going to conform to the way He tells us to do things. Where in the world, without Christ is even entering into it at all, what would lead a person to have forgiveness? Because the argument from an unsaved person is that they still have morals too. That someone can have morals and values without believing in a Christ that died on the cross for the sins of the world.
Well, they can have values, but they can't have morals.
Okay, explain that.
Well, the moral morals is really comes from God, comes from like if there's not a standard for morality, then it's not truly morals.
Okay.
But everyone
you're talking about
right, but everyone can.
I keep interrupting. I get excited.
No, you're fine. I'm just saying that everyone can maintain their own values, and their values could be seemingly more moral than a believer's or sometimes. But when it comes down to the standard of what is good, that is morality, and that comes from the Bible.
Right. I mean, even our laws, people argue this point all the time, but even the laws that we obey right now come with a moral imperative from the Bible, whether people admit it or not. Right. You agree or disagree with that point?
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, if the I mean, I don't know about right this very second, but 50 years ago, oh yeah. 50 years ago, it was still illegal in many states to be a sodomite.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Well, they had also some pretty horrible laws that were put into place under the guise of it being a Christian law. Like here in South Carolina, there was a law in the books for a long time that you could beat your wife on the steps of the courthouse on Sunday.
What the heck?
Yeah. I mean, that's just an example of some of the strange laws that people put into place where it protects men and not women. I mean, there are some instances where the reform has been needed, in different areas.
Right. Well, those are people who take the Bible and turn it upside down, because while men and women are completely different, they are 100% absolutely equal. So there's the Bible teaches equality to the extreme. Now there's a method, a system of God's order, but even in that method, everything is completely equal. So just like the Godhead, each part of the Godhead is equal. There's not one that's greater than the other. That's the same with humanity. Different roles, but same equality.
Yeah.
Right, I gotcha.
One thing I was going to say about being lost and forgiving, and this may be a little off, but I'm just sharing from past experience. I know there was times that I would say that I would forgive someone in front of people to seem like a good person.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, why they did this and this and this and this and this to me, and I forgave them.
Oh yeah.
Just from a perspective of, I guess, self-righteous or showing off.
And I've heard other people. Sure, I've heard other people do that too. And I mean, that's a pride thing, right? It can be a pride thing that you would make an announcement of how horrible this person was to you, and then how great you are because you forgave them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If there's any
if
there's any ulterior motives to the forgiveness, it's not true forgiveness.
Yeah.
I would agree. And I've learned that lesson too, because if you haven't truly forgiven someone, even if you fool yourself into doing it, it always comes back. And then you realize that you didn't actually totally forgive that person. It always comes back. If you have truly forgiven the person, even when you see the person, you're not going to have that same feeling of unforgiveness or anger or frustration or whatever it may be for you, because it's not there. I've had that happen
where it was there. Yeah.
it was unknown to me that I still had any animosity towards this person whatsoever until it came up again. And then I had to, fortunately for me, you know, because it was kind of a surprise, I was like, wow, why am I feeling this toward this person? I forgave them. And it was something God was able to show me in my life of how sometimes, you know, you think that you've forgiven someone or you understand, and you completely let something go, and it comes back. So I had to do it in a different way, and then I did it as Matthias said. Right, I did it. I forgave him correctly the second time, and that's just a failure on my part of not understanding or not at the time not. Or thinking that I had forgiven the person completely, and I really hadn't.
Yeah.
We've all done that. Hey, I've got Daniel here, who's got a couple things to share with us, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Does he want it? Can he do it in 7 minutes before the break, or does he want to come on after the break?
No, 7 minutes sounds good, because that way him and his wife don't stay too long.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, how are you guys doing?
Bring them on.
I've been
doing well, Daniel. How are you?
I'm good. I've been hovering around in the chat room a little bit, but anyway, I was just going to mention, you know, forgiveness it's almost like love. You know, people mistake a feeling for love. You know, all the time in the world, they think, you know, love is butterflies in your stomach and rainbows and unicorns, but love is a choice. So it really, forgiveness is the same thing. You know, people think, well, you know, if once I get over it and I feel a certain way, but forgiveness doesn't necessarily take away the feeling. It's a choice of how you're going to treat a person in spite of what they've done. And in time, God can give you victory over even the feelings, but it doesn't change what was done to you. And it doesn't, you can't just choose to forget it either. I mean, God said your sins and iniquities will I remember no more because of what the blood he shed, but that's God. We don't have the same mindset. Now we can get there eventually as we submit to him and just utilize those principles in our life. But the first thing we have to do, you know, in forgiveness is, number one, when people do us wrong, we need to remember that we did the Lord a whole lot worse than anybody's ever done to us when it really comes down to it. And he forgave us for Christ's sake. That's Ephesians 4:32. Be kind one to another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake has forgiven you. Sometimes in situations in life, the only reason we can find to forgive somebody is because Christ forgave us. So sometimes we have to set our mind to decide to forgive on that basis alone, because in ourselves we have no other basis and we don't even want to, you know. So if we focus on the gospel, then we can eventually forgive. And I'm going to share this story real quick, and then I'll be done. But my father-in-law, years ago, he had moved down here to Florida, and he left their furniture with his brother-in-law up there in Tennessee. And he tells the story all the time. So y'all be quiet. And so whenever they came down here, they were going to go back and get their stuff. So he called his brother-in-law and said, all right, we found a house. I'm going to come up and come get our stuff. He said, no need. He said, I sold it all. He said, you what?
Oh my goodness.
He said, you know, it was in my barn. I was just ready for it to get out. So I just sold it. And so my father-in-law said he determined, all right, I'm still coming up there, but I'm going to come where you're at. You tell me where you're at, and I'm coming to see you. We're going to handle this. And a friend of his went with him that we've known for years. He said the whole way up, he said, man, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to beat this. He's like, he might beat me up, but I'm going to get some good ones in. he's done this against my family. He just pictured all that happened with, his wife being upset that they've lost their stuff and all this. But on the way up there, the guy that was riding with him, he was talking to him about the gospel, reminding him, hey, listen, God forgave you. So about I don't know how far he made it up towards Tennessee from Florida, but he stopped. He said, all right. He called back up there. He said, I'm not coming. He said, the Lord reminded me how good he was to me, and I was mean to him. And he forgave me, so I'm going to forgive you. And later that same man told him, outside, this was years later, he said, why are you so good to me whenever I've been so mean to you? And my father-in-law told him, because Christ was good to me. And that man was able to trust Christ from his preaching. So, I mean, forgiveness is a powerful thing that God has given us. It's really a gift. We don't deserve it, but for Christ's sake, he's forgiven us. So for Christ's sake, we can forgive others.
Beautiful.
That's good. Thank you, Daniel.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for
having me. True story.
True Story Live.
True story on True Story Live. That was perfect. I love that. Thank you for being willing to share that with us, Daniel.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a blessed night.
Don't leave yet. I've got one more question.
Okay.
So that was a story about someone else. Do you have a short story about something that happened to you personally that you learned something about? For that, I mean, that should be good enough. But I always like to ask on the personal side.
Yeah, I guess I have. Give me a few minutes to recall the details, because
sure,
and then maybe I could share some of that.
Maybe you're just so good at forgiving that you can't remember.
Oh no,
so gone.
Forgiven and forgotten.
That's not it.
That's right. East cast as far as the east is from the west in his own mind, even.
Well, I mean,
that's beautiful.
Well, the thing is, I understand who I am, and I understand because I've had outwardly I've had the good religious life, but the Lord had to show me that I was worse because I thought I was better. So whenever I came to that realization, I mean, there's not too many people that I can't forgive. Now I can be cautious. So around people, like, I'm wary because I've been hurt before like that.
Sure.
I've been accused of things, but I thought, you know what? Jesus said that, people speak all manner against you falsely for my name's sake. So, I mean, I don't consider that that's just par for the course. So it's not like somebody has really done something so bad to me. I mean, it was potentially, it could have been bad, but,
right.
But I just remember, what Christ did and how much I've hurt him. And so that, a one-time offense to me really is not that big of a deal compared to what I've done to God my whole life in my own pride.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
So.
All right. Hey, Daniel, thanks again. We're going to have to do another testimony show of some sort, because there's a lot of people, I'm sure they're listening now that don't really know who you are. So for those listening, Daniel's a friend of Matthias. Actually, he came on True Story Live quite a while back and told us a little bit about his testimony and where he has come from, where he is now, and all that. And it's pretty moving, and I can relate to it in some instances because, and I'm paraphrasing your story here just a little bit, Daniel, just before we go to the break. But he was teaching other people from the Word and, showing other people how to live and felt like you were doing all the right things and everything. And then discovered that you maybe weren't. And God made some real changes in you, and it changed everything for you. That's the paraphrased third-party version of that.
Right. Well, and the power, the reason I was able to be used even as a lost band was because I was just sharing the word. The power's in the word. It's not the power is not in the vessel. I just, I was sincere, but I was sharing what truth that I knew. And eventually the Lord opened up my own mind to know that too. So.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing.
And here's a little note for somebody that's listening in on the love is a choice thing. My great grandparents were married for 66 years. And one of the things that they always talked about marriage was that marriage is not a 50-50. Like people always say, marriage is 100-100 because you're not always going to have somebody giving 100% all the time. So it is a choice. True love is a choice. It's not butterflies and rainbows. That's movies. That's what the world makes you think that love is. Love is, sometimes being so mad at somebody. If you could pinch them, but then you think, you know what? I'm hurting myself, but it's choosing. Love is a choice to be good to somebody, even when they don't deserve it, because God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. He chose to come. So yeah, I do agree. Love is a choice. It's not butterflies and infatuation. It's I'm going to be good to somebody because I said I would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a huge difference between the feelings people get, the chemicals that bounce around inside your body when you think that you're in love with someone, and actually experiencing what true love is for another person. There's definitely a difference between the two. And I completely agree with you. You do choose, just as you choose to forgive. It is a choice. It's not some ethereal thing. And sometimes it takes more. It takes work. So it's also a verb rather than just a noun, right?
Right.
Forgiveness is an action word.
Exactly.
Because you get into the situation too where you might forgive someone one time, and we know from Scripture that it's not just one time that we're supposed to forgive someone. And I'm not making it a law thing. I'm just saying that we're required to forgive as many times as someone needs that forgiveness. We're always required to forgive.
Right.
And it is a choice. You have to make the choice to participate in your own forgiveness.
And that's a problem if we're preaching the gospel and then we don't forgive in our own personal life. What does that say to the people that know us? In their mind, do we really believe what we're saying?
Even more than that, it takes the authenticity out of the person's walk. They think that we're not authentic.
Right.
I agree.
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to take a short break on True Story Live. We're going to play a song. We're going to play a couple ads. Daniel, thanks again for sharing that with us. I hope that you have a good rest of your evening.
Y'all too.
All right. So we'll be back in about 7 minutes right here on True Story Live. So stay tuned. On the other side of the break, we'll talk more about forgiveness, and we still haven't heard from Matthias' forgiveness story or Jen. So we'll do that when we get back. And so just stick with us, and we'll be right back.
Muted.
time in appointed order, holding secrets that lie before us and behind. You will rise, you will step back around where Polaris stands, marking seasons while you dance above my glance under Yahweh's command. Observing what is in the sky and tell, gathered in time, light held, extending our lives in safe hands. Observing what the wind gathered in
Hello everyone, my name is Suzanne Marr and I'm founder of Bye Bye Blue Sky, and we have a passion for the planet. Bye Bye Blue Sky is a dedicated global public environmental movement who seeks to be a voice for all living creatures and ecosystems, and to protect human health and safeguard the natural environment, air, water, and land which our sustenance depends. We use education, peaceful protest, and creative communication to expose one of the world's largest and most significant ecological threats and preeminent disasters, commonly known as climate engineering or chemtrails. Please visit our website, byebybluesky.com, and learn the truth about the sinister aerosol spraying. There are many media articles, patents, government white papers, which are available on our site, which attest to these programs. We also have awareness items, bumper stickers, t-shirts, which can be purchased, and brochures and business cards, which can be downloaded and distributed. There are a number of ongoing Bye Bye Blue Sky GoFundMe billboard campaigns in North America. The link's available on our website. I encourage everyone to donate to these billboards. A few dollars can save the planet. Please also join Bye Bye Blue Sky on our Facebook page of the same name and meet dedicated and like minds. Thank you.
Listening to True Story Live with your host, Jay Chris. Right here on Infinite Source. All right, we're back on True Story Live. Thanks for staying with us during the break. I'm here again with Jen V, who is my co-host over the summer, taking the controls from Brenda, who will be back in September. Right? Isn't she going to be back in September?
Yes.
Excellent. So we have you for a while. Just right there with us. I actually have that sound somewhere, but it was, you have to be ready to do that. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, the Jaws one. There's several cute little things on there. So, also with us again, Matthias, you still there, buddy?
Yes, of course. I'm here.
Fantastic.
Whispering.
I know you guys are always right where you should be on this show. That's good. All right. So before we get going again, I just want to say that this show is not for profit, and it's for entertainment purposes only. And the song that was played during the break is by Amber Blaster, used by her permission, called Star Trails. Awesome. All right. So during the break, Jen, you said that you had a question. So let's start with your question first, and then I also want to hear, unless what you're about to talk about includes this. I mean, you've already talked a little bit about forgiveness, but you have a big story about what you've learned from forgiveness yourself.
I've got a lot of stories.
Oh, I know.
I'll have to leave it all in a couple of seconds. No, my question actually is, do you guys think it is important for the person that you're forgiving? Do you think it's imperative or important to let them know? Because I'm coming from a personality that has a really hard time with confrontation, and so there's been times I've told people that I've forgiven them. You know, on the other side of being saved, because I don't like confrontation. I'm like the queen of writing letters. Just FYI.
Oh, sure.
Texting is great, which is terrible actually. I really should get better at face to face or ear to ear or whatever. But so I never want to come across like I had mentioned before the break, where you're like, well, I forgive you, because some people can read things the wrong way.
They sure can.
Because just thinking of it as being a self-righteous thing when you're being genuinely honest, and
right.
humble about it, But I don't know what y'all's thoughts were on that. If you feel it, or even if it's biblical that we tell someone that we've forgiven them, or because I guess the stuff that I went through this past year, which was just a crazy ride of just betrayal and things being done wrong to me and my family. I think only one out of the 9 things that happened, back to back, only one person did I actually tell them I forgave them. And so I just wasn't sure what y'all's opinion was on that.
Matthias, you want to tackle that one first?
Sure. Is it necessary? No, it's not necessary by any means. It's almost prideful if you're going to go to them and tell them that you've forgiven them. Now, if it's something that needs to be taken care of, you go to them and you go to them and tell them that they've wronged. And if they ask for forgiveness, you give forgiveness. If you are interacting with them and you've talked to them and it comes up, then you certainly don't want to lie about forgiving them. But you don't need to. Now, if it's a brother, it is, or a sister in the Lord, it is kind of important to track them down and talk it out, even if that means writing them a letter. But if it's somebody who you don't think is a brother or sister in the Lord, it is not necessary to flag them down, call them up and be like, hey, I just want you to know. You almost sound pious, and they'll think, well, I didn't want your forgiveness. But worldly forgiveness is the only definition they know. Biblical forgiveness is one-sided.
Yeah.
But
okay, gotcha.
It's forgiveness is, like I said earlier, it's somebody who bears the burden. And so forgiveness is talking about a debt. And so when somebody owes a debt because they've wronged us, when you do forgive, it does cost you. Think about it in financial terms. If Jennifer, if you owed me $100 and I just forgave it, you said I can't pay it. You know what? I forgive the debt. Well, that means that it just cost me $100.
Yeah.
And so forgiveness is not just a nonchalant passing by. It's bearing the burden for the person. That's what true biblical forgiveness is. That's how you can forgive and forget in the fact of not bringing up against them again. But do you have to tell them? Do you have to tell them? No, because a lost person won't even understand why the forgiveness is important for you to even do in the first place.
And more times than not, they probably would take it the wrong way.
Right.
Because of the worldly way it's used.
Correct.
The prideful, like almost rubbing it in your face kind of a way. I forgive you. Because you were just so awful to me. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a good.
Well, yeah, and just for the record, not every Christian doesn't react like that either.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's important as a believer to react the way that you should act, but it doesn't mean that a Christian can't react in a prideful manner, because that's happened.
Oh yeah.
But I do have a story, and I'll make it shorter than it needs to be, just because it ties into what you're saying, Jen. I had a bully when I was a kid, and
yeah.
He was when people say bullying today, and if you have children that are being bullied, I'm so sorry for you, and it's a terrible thing, and I'm not trying to minimize the type of things that people call bullying today as compared to what they were when I was a kid. But this guy, I'll give you 3 examples. He said that he admired my cowboy boots. He took one of my boots and said he wanted to look at it, and he dipped it in a bucket of paint. They were brand new boots, and that's one thing. And then another time, he and a cousin were at the school, and both of them had matching bikes. His cousin was cool, and we'll call this guy, we'll call him Steve. So Steve Steve was the one that was my bully, and we'll call his cousin Ray. And Ray said I could borrow his bike, and I went out there, and this other kid told me the wrong bike. I ended up riding Steve's bike without permission. It was the exact same model. When Steve came out and saw me on his bike, he told me to get off his bike, and I was scared, obviously, because he'd already done other things to me. And when I got out, he said, "Oh, it's no problem." And I said, "They said this was Ray's bike." He said, "Oh, no, it's no problem." He was even smiling and everything. He got off the bike, and he hit me in the back with a baseball bat.
Oh my.
Well, those. I'll just do 2 examples to make it shorter. So, fast forward 40 years. 40 years have gone by, and I hadn't thought about this guy in quite some time. He hadn't even entered my mind in many ways. And I was helping at my sister's Christian school. I directed a few plays for them. I'm a theater performance major, and sometimes I do work like that for churches if they need a play directed or something. Then I do that, and I was doing that for the school. And we had a performance, and at the end of the performance, a lot of times parents will come up to you and say, "Thanks for, my kid loves you, you're awesome," and stuff, and thanks for doing what you do. And this guy walks up to me, and the moment he stuck his hand out, I looked at him, I knew who it was, and it was Steve from school. I hadn't seen him, I don't know, in quite some time. And in that moment, I'm standing here looking at this guy that made part of my life miserable that I hadn't thought of in all this time. And I realized that I was angry, and I wanted to tell him, because obviously I'm not as small as I was when he was my bully.
Yeah.
And even being a believer, I had a moment where I saw his face, and I wanted to tell him that what he did to me wasn't right, and he never should have gotten away with it. And because of who he was and who his parents were at the time, and the school, and in the community where I was, then his things were often overlooked. And I wanted to tell him all that right in that moment, but I didn't do it. So his kid went to the school and was one of the kids that I directed in the play that I was working on, and I had no idea the whole time. Didn't know. And there he was telling me that I did a great job with this kid, and thanks so much. And then, so that night when I left, I was thinking about this instance. Like, you know, you have that first instinct, which is why didn't I tell him? Why didn't I just tell him that, you know, I didn't appreciate what he did? Why didn't I make him apologize? Why didn't I do this, or why didn't I do that? And then in that same moment, after those thoughts went through my head, I thought, you know what? I haven't even thought about this guy in over 30 years. Haven't even thought about him. And I see him face to face, and all this stuff comes up. And I'm glad it came up, because obviously I had never made the connection that that was something I was still holding on to. So I had to forgive him. And I did that. I said, you know, 40 years have gone by. Lord, you've forgiven me, so I'm going to forgive this guy. There's no reason for me to make a big deal out of it now. So to answer, Jen, from my perspective, using that story as an example, I didn't go and find Steve and say, hey, you were a bully to me, and you remember all that stuff you did to me? Well, all these years ago, now I know who you are, and I forgive you. So there was no reason for me to do that. That was for me, in case I ran into him again, and I wouldn't feel that same anxiety and frustration towards him.
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes, I agree with him on what Matthias says. You know, if you're in an ongoing relationship with someone and they've done something to you, I think the importance in telling them that you forgave them is if they've noticed something's going on in the first place, and, you know, like maybe you used to be closer and you haven't hung out for a while, and the reason for you is that you have unforgiveness, they may kind of get an idea but not know the full story. And in that instance, if you're in an ongoing relationship, it seems like it would be beneficial. But I think there's a part of it that is always beneficial, because it brings glory to God, to know that, especially given certain situations, you know, that someone, if you're forgiving someone something, and we don't know when it would be helpful for them to realize that they're forgiven.
Yeah.
It can bring glory to God, I believe.
Right.
All right. We got a caller with their hand up. Hello. Hello, caller. 215.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to just play with the kitten, because she just really stuck my finger hard. It's Renegade. What's going on?
Oh, no.
You're a professional. Yeah, I was going to say. I was going to let you announce yourself. You know, I know who it is, but I was like, come on, man.
Sorry. I'm sitting here listening to your story, and I'm playing with the kitten, and she's like hiding around the corner of the steps. I'm like poking my eye around it. She's like poking her eye around at me. Next thing I see, the hand coming out. Oh my God. So now trying to grab her paw. Oh, this kid's cute. So anyway,
Nice.
Listening to your story, brother. Yeah, you just kicked me in my place. Now, I wasn't a jerk back in the day, but oh man, I don't know how I can say this.
Do the best you can.
I guess after school, you know, you're still in your 20s, so you really don't have anything figured out yet. You really don't. Now, I don't think a man's mind comes to him until he's about maybe 25 or older, and I don't think you will get adjusted to your mind, to, you know, that the ability of mind, until you're probably maybe about 30 to 33 years old. And
Matthias would agree with you on that, I think.
Hence Facebook. But prior to that, it's amazing when you kind of surrender your life to God, and out of nowhere, you just go down memory lane, and you think of all the things that's happened to you in your life and how you could have handled it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had a hard time with that for a while. And it's like, how do I find these people, some of these people that I went to school with? Now, I wasn't that bully that you're talking about. And Jay, I give you kudos because you probably could have grabbed a hold of this guy and wrecked his day. You probably could have. And I'm sure you would.
I'm aware of that. Yeah.
But you know what? I think at this point in time, and I've seen it with my son, where he was bullied. And he's actually a big boy now, and he's a mixed martial arts fighter, and he will wreck someone's day. But he has a compassionate heart. He just wouldn't go and do that to you, but he could.
Right.
So, me hitting that road, of remembrance, I just felt like a little jerk for some of the things that I allowed to happen. I stood on the sidelines and I could have stepped up and said, "Hey, stop messing with this guy. Let him alone."
Yeah.
And I guess that was my thing. It wasn't that I was the bully. I just let things happen. And thinking back, I wish I would not have been that person. I should have stepped up because I wasn't I'm not here to brag. I'm just going to pat my own back. But I wasn't all athlete. I played all sports. I was very good at them. I never got bullied. But I should have been that voice to speak out and say, "Yo, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why just steal this guy's glasses? He needs them to see, Why are you calling him names?" I should have been that guy. And that's something I really had a hard time with once my mind got right. And once I think I got convicted enough by God, or I started going back and looking at my prior life or my youth and saying, "Wow, I wish I would have done some of these things differently." So later in life, here comes Facebook, and I actually was able to connect with some of my childhood friends and people that I knew in school, and some of these children that were the targets of bullies.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually reached out to two of them, and I said, "Hey, I want to apologize to you right now for any past behavior, or maybe me. I should have stepped up and been your wingman and been a fighter for you." And I said, "I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I am seriously sorry, and I hope you can forgive me." And it didn't take a lot out of me to do that because I needed to do this. And to this day, I wish, I would like to actually meet up with some of these guys and give them a big hug, because at the end of the day, we're all here. We're all human. We're all dealing with the same issues. And a lot of us now have children. And either, who knows what's going on with your child? But I love everybody. And I've said this before, and children can be so wicked. They can be so nasty. And it's not that it's the heart of a child to be wicked and nasty. It's like they just kind of go with the flow. But yet that wickedness and that nastiness is still there. And I guess it comes down to parenting. None of my children were bullies. And I think that came back to the parenting aspect where we're like, "Hey, you need to stand up to people." And that's where my convictions came in. And to this day, that is a weight that I carry, and I feel very bad for it. And like I said, I wasn't the bully, but I just kind of went along with it. I didn't go and slap these guys upside their heads or trip them up in the hallway. Actually, the guys I went after were the guys that were trying to be better than me. I remember we had a special this Olympics thing with all the school districts, and this one guy, Chris Daly, and I feel bad right now even talking about this, but we were playing soccer, and that was my thing. And he was trying to go for the goal, and I scissored him. And, this would have been done. This would have been done on the field. Depending on how I did it, I probably got away with it. But this was just outright. This guy was in a full sprint, and I just scissored his legs. I basically slide back on him, scissored his legs, and he went down so hard. And
you would have gotten a yellow. You would have got a yellow card.
Yeah, I would probably got a red card. But me looking, envisioning this right now in my mind, like I couldn't believe I hurt the guy. He hurt. But Because all these people were around, he didn't want to act like he was hurt. I know it hurt. He went down hard.
Right.
And, you know, now that I know, I just feel bad, man. And for some of the dumb things I've done in the past. And I've asked for forgiveness. And I actually, you know, sold out to those people. And I'll tell you what, even though I asked them for the forgiveness, you can never take back what you've done.
Oh, no.
And that still stings. That still stings. And you know, whether I did it or not, but the fact that I was standing on the sidelines letting it happen, it's still something that I could have done differently. And I can never, you know what I mean? I can't take that back. That feeling's always going to be with me. Now that the feeling actually, back in the day, didn't mean nothing. You know, I would say, ha, 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 ha. But now it's like, it hurts now. Like, I should have stepped up.
As you get older, too, you see the effects that some of that stuff has on people. You know, the things that you said to a kid when they were young, you don't really know till you're older that even hurt them. I mean, I've had conversations with people that,
you know what?
You know,
Jake,
but I think a lot of people fall in the category of where they weren't bully themselves directly, but they didn't do anything about it. They were aiders and abettors to bullies.
Jay, there are things, you're absolutely right. There are things that come up in my life that I'll go through an instance, and all of a sudden my mind will, either God or my mind will remind me of something that was said to me like 15 to 20 to 30 years ago.
Yeah.
About that instance. And like, either by my parents or by a friend, or it's like your mind, the mind's a weird thing. Like, you can recall things at the most oddest of times. And there's so many things that have happened in my life. It's just like, boom, I hear someone talking to me, like, stating exactly what's going on. Like, you should have known better to play with fire. You know, you're going to get burned.
Yeah.
Just as an example. But, yeah, you know, years later, these things, either the words of a spoken word of someone will come back, and, you know, and that goes back to the things that these children have heard. You know, someone has been bullied. You know, the insults, the shenanigans that went on, maybe practical jokes that went on. I'm just trying to think of some things, but the insults, I think, are probably some of the baddest ones, because you, as a child, you're hearing them, you know, maybe coming from another child, but what if you hear them at home? I mean, my goodness. You know, and a lot of times, a lot of these children that are kind of introverted, kind of, you know, sticking to themselves, we as children are too dumb to understand these telltales, these tells, so to speak, these signs. So we as children are going to go after, you know, as a child, you're kind of like a lion, and you're in the hunt. You know, you go for the weakest prey. And sadly enough, the weakest prey could have been these children that are abused mentally, physically, spiritually, you know, verbally, sexually. But we don't know that. But think about the words that not only are they getting at home, they say they're verbally abused, which is mentally abused, but now you're getting it at school, which should be a safe haven. Think about the impact that has on your life as you're growing older. I mean,
sure.
This hurts my heart. This hurts my heart. This hurts my heart.
Yeah. So, what about, AJ, what about a story that you have where you had to forgive someone else that did something to you? Do you have one of those for us?
Yes.
And this is not conceited or prideful, because I'm asking you for the sake of the topic. You know, I mentioned a story from my life. We're going to do Matthias and Jen, since you called in. Let's hear yours first. The forgiveness when someone did something to you and you had to forgive them, and what you learned from it. I was wrongfully accused of stealing one of my friends, and I know him to date. He wrongfully accused me back in 1992, 91, I want to say, back when I was my 11th grade year of high school. He wrongfully accused me of stealing money from his father. Oh,
it wasn't me. I was not the one. And it stuck with me so long that this guy thought that I actually stole. I called his father that night. I said, Mr. So-and-so. I said, listen, I told him who I was. He's like, yeah, well, why are you calling me? I said, listen, this is what's going on. I said, I did not take your money. I said, I would never do that. I respect you. I respect your son. I go, I would not do this. Well, this went on for a while, and we all graduated, of course, and went on our own ways. And some people got involved in this, other people got involved in this. And years later, in our 30s, I run into this guy at a bar that my band was actually playing at. And he came up to me and he says, I got to apologize to you. I said, why? He said, because I know you're not the one that took the money. I said, really? I said, after all this time, after all the crap that happened back then, you finally now believe me? He goes, you know what's funny? He goes, Aaron, when it first happened, my father looked at me that night and he said, that kid did not take the money. He called me. He did not take the money. The funny thing was, this guy's best friend is the one who was taking the money.
Oh my gosh.
And he blamed me for doing it. I'm talking hundreds of dollars.
Wow.
So, and now I haven't seen that scumbag in a while. I saw him one time. His name is Ben. But the guy that was taking the money and wanted to blame me. And if I see him anytime soon, trust me, there's going to be some choice words exchanged between us, and maybe.
But that's not forgiveness, though.
AJ, what's up?
No, hold on.
That's not forgiveness.
No. This isn't the guy that was blaming me. I've forgiven him. This is the guy that actually took the money and tried to sabotage me.
Oh, I understand. I don't know if I can forgive that. But I think I can. Because he got hit.
But this is a good case in point, AJ, on why the bitterness, the if you get in touch with him, you're gonna have some choice words to say, and then let's say that you did get in touch with him, and let's say he was lost, or there's somebody around, and your words deter them from learning and hearing the truth. Whereas if you forgave them now, before they even realize that, he may not even realize he needs forgiveness from you because he stole it from the friend's dad. But you.
That's a good point.
I will have my choice words are going to be very well spoken, and remember, everybody on this call, we know we're to be ambassadors of our Heavenly Father.
Absolutely,
so, I'm not going to step too far to the left, but I'm going to give him a little bit of peace of my mind. And
sure you would.
Should I forgive him for blaming me? I already have. I mean, because guess what? He got found out. So the joke's on him, I guess. But that affected me for years. But I forgave Sean, and when he said that to me, I'm like, hey man, it's cool. And he actually asked me. He's like, listen, I'm sorry. You forgive me? I'm like, yeah. I said, yes, I do. And then it was funny because I said, well, who took it? He goes, oh, I know who took it. He goes, because that's not the first time he burned me. The reason how I found out is because years later, he took a whole bunch from me from my own home. So it wasn't even his father. Yeah, so, of course I've forgiven this idiot. Not Sean. I'm not calling him an idiot, but this guy did. What? The sad thing about him is I don't think he's ever going to change. He's a reprobate.
Right. Well, the forgiveness has nothing to do with whether the person's going to change or not, right? Forgiveness is for you to forgive.
Yeah, and it kind of helps when, the last laugh, comes around. And you're just like, look at you now. But I feel sad for the guy that he had to go that low.
Yeah, they call that Schadenfreude, which is taking...
That sounds like an honest word.
Well,
German.
That's what getting even is. So think about somebody who does you wrong. They're down low because they wronged you. And so when you get even or exact vengeance yourself, then what you're doing is you're going down to their level. Where when they do you wrong, they're down below. When you forgive, you're actually reaching down and pulling them up to you.
Very true. Good point, Messiah.
It's like that. It's like Rose on the big enough board to let jack on. It's very much like that.
You know what though? That aspect that they're giving them is one thing, but back to what I was stating earlier about these kids that were bullied. And that's impacted me. Me knowing that I didn't steal this kid's father's money. It was $400, as a matter of fact. Me knowing that's fine. You can blame me all you want. I know I didn't do it. But how about the children that are getting constantly bullied, called names, slapped around, tripped up, get swirlies, whatever it is? I mean, that's gonna the healing. Only God can do that healing.
Well, they don't even do that. They don't even do that anymore. Now it's all social network bullying. They put stuff. I mean, nowadays you make fun of someone on social media. I mean, it's not actual. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't any cases of actual bullying, but yeah, that's where they've given social networks the power. They've given social media the power to destroy someone's life, and people kill themselves because someone said something about them on Facebook.
I was just going to say that there have been so many cases of self-murder because of online bullying, and that really hurts my heart. That's bad stuff, man. Yeah. That people stoop to this level. Why can't people just learn to love? Except push us the differences aside. Where's the compassion at? Where's the compassion or empathy? I mean, where's the empathy of these kids that are relentless in their pursuit of ruining someone's life? I mean, they have to know now that there's been a line of people that self-murder. When does the empathy set in? Exactly. Good point. Doesn't seem like they have very much. No, you're looking at demonized children. Yeah. Yeah. All right, Jen, you're up. We'd like to hear your forgiveness story when you've had to forgive someone else.
Yeah, I was trying to decide if I wanted to give a quick rundown of the last year or just pick one.
Do whatever you want.
You got recent one? Recent? That's cool.
Last year, I'll just give a quick rundown. Between, I want to say, April and November, we had two customers try to sue us under false pretenses, mainly like a bunch of lies that they were telling. It was just not good. And we caught our employee that had been working with us for a few years. She had been stealing cash from us for our small business, family-owned. And that was heartbreaking because it was like a part of our family. And there's really no way, because we don't use a POS system and we use like paper receipts, there's no way to know how much she took. And we had another auction house guy that we dealt with that we sold stuff through, like inventory that would move. He stole some stuff from us. More than one thing. It just snowballed. Like the whole year just snowballed. But what I do want to say, because honestly, the things that they did, I don't want that to be the focus. And I did want to say that back before I learned all the lessons that God wanted to teach me through this, because there were some awesome lessons I learned through going through all this, and it was like a domino effect, one after the other.
I'm sure.
I used to wait for time to take care of the sting of being betrayed in order to be in a place to forgive. Now, everything that happened this past year, I've experienced going to God, because, it was so much stuff happening one after the other. It kind of like ran me over pretty much emotionally. It was like I wouldn't even have been recovered from the last betrayal, and then another one happened. It was just like, what is going on?
Like slap. One slap was enough.
I'm not even up and get like dumped into water. But so I kind of was forced in this position where I was getting, and this is very much not me feeling, angry and just, I don't know, I just not a normal feeling with my personality. So I was getting just really concerned about myself, and not like, hey, what's wrong with me? But just overloaded with feelings that I didn't want to be feeling and that I knew weren't godly feelings. So I really and truly was in a place that I've never been before, and just really had to go to God. And my experience was the forgiveness came through praying for them. Every time I had those feelings, like just almost like a volcano, it would just like bubble up and just want to explode. I literally would, in the middle of that starting to churn, I took it straight to God, and I prayed that He would bless them and that His will, His perfect will, would be done in their lives. And through doing that, and I don't even know exactly when it happened, but this thing was taken away from my heart and just my emotions, especially because our emotions are just, crazy. But in the process of praying for them, my heart toward them was changed. And it wasn't something that I manifested with myself. God did it. He softened my heart for them. So now when I think about what they did, it doesn't trigger this like anger or bitterness. I really and truly have compassion and love for them. And it's so odd to say that, but God can still do that. And I'm so grateful for all that stuff happening. And it's weird to say that too, because, what Matthias was saying, that it costs people to forgive. I think pretty much all of the things that we went through, they did cost us financially. And, like I said, we're a small business and we're not made of money, so
Totally.
It cost us, but you know what? Nothing can take away the lessons that I learned through that, the lessons of forgiveness and what God can do. Yeah, and I'm not sure, I don't know what His will is for their lives, and I don't need to, but it's not like, hey, I pray God's will because I know He's going to get them, you know what I mean, for what they did. I really and truly know that God has a plan for their life, and whether they know I've forgiven them or not, that doesn't matter, like we talked about before, but God has changed my heart, and I'm so grateful because I'm in a different space now, so that when bad stuff does happen, which is going to happen, we live in a fallen world with people that are hurting, and whether it's Christians that are saved or, people that are unsaved, and so, hurt people, and it's going to happen, so I think having that ability to just pray and know that God has the power to change your heart toward people so that the bitterness isn't there and it doesn't eat you alive, that's huge.
What you just said right there about hurt people actually hurt people.
Yeah.
Well, you got my mind turning right now.
It's so true. The times that I've lashed out to people, other times it really is more of a reflection of what's going on with me, and stuff that I'm not dealing with, I mean, it's still other stuff too, but really, truly, hurt people, and we're all hurting in some capacity, some more than others.
You just gave me an idea for a really good song, and I've been looking for some inspiration. I haven't been able to write anything. I've sat out here for the past 3 nights. I've been on vacation all week, and my songbook is empty. You just gave me something right there. Wow.
Awesome, AJ.
Thank you.
Sweet.
Thank you. That was actually brilliant. Hurt people.
It's so true.
All right.
It is.
I love it.
Very true.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Jen.
You're welcome, guys.
Hey, Jen, can I have your permission to use your audio clip at the beginning of that song?
Sure, yeah.
Nice.
She'd probably love it if you did.
All her message
AJ,
was brilliant.
Yeah, you should know too that she has a fantastic singing voice as well.
I'll be putting that clip I sent you and Brenda.
Oh, that's a great one. It's too short, but it's a great one.
Brenda has an amazing singing voice. She sent me 2 videos this past week.
Yeah,
she rocks.
Absolutely.
I love Brenda's voice. I want to hear from Matthias.
Yep, Matthias is up next. We got 7.5 minutes, Matthias, for you to wrap it up.
Wrap up my personal story. I've been thinking about it since you guys have been talking. I guess it's been good that that I went last because I really had to think about it. Before I was saved,
That's good.
Before I was saved, there were a bunch of different things. And, you know, I can honestly say that I had learned as a lost man that if it wasn't true forgiveness, but if it was more like I don't care about it. It helped keep me sane and happy-go-lucky. But since I've been saved, I've realized that it's more than not caring about it. It is about caring about it, but it's about knowing that what I've done to Christ, it was a lot more. And when I was openly, I don't want to say literally because it wasn't, but I was spitting in his face. He still died for me. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So realizing that it's not about not caring, but it is about caring, but realizing that Christ actually, their sin against us was more so against God. No matter what the case may be, a sin is against God, and that God has forgiven them. And for Christ, and since God has forgiven me for much more, why can't I forgive them rather than just not caring? So since I've been saved, I don't really I don't have too many things where people have come against me to where I've had to practice this, where I'd be like, yes, I forgive you. I mean, I've had people that I don't get along with, and I try to forgive immediately on even the little things. But the person that I've had to forgive the most was myself. And that was the hardest.
Right.
And
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Well,
I love
it. It truly was, because
let's talk about that. All right.
For me, I was the worst of sinners. For me, I guess my worst sin was trying to get whatever girl I could in the sheets, whichever. I mean, I would never do things forcibly, of course, but I certainly wouldn't mind lying and just acting as if I cared or even loved when I didn't, and it was just nothing but game to me, so to speak. The Bible would call it a whoremonger. And so while I honestly don't even know all the girls' names, I couldn't even go back and ask them for forgiveness. But for me, and actually for moving forward in my life with my wife, I had to forgive myself. It was causing such a root of bitterness that I see now why God says fornication is terrible and bad, and it's a sin against the body. Because when you try to take that into a pure marriage, it's already tainted. And so it takes true forgiveness in order to get to the purity that a marriage bed should be anyways. And it takes forgiveness of ourselves in the aspect from where I was coming from, for certain. But knowing that, looking back and knowing that a lot of my actions turned people away from Christ while I was lost, it took a lot of, maybe that's why I worked so hard now as a saved man, trying to help people come to Christ, because I was with unknowingly, a soldier of the enemy, not just a child, but a soldier. So, so my main thing for me to be able to move forward and have God to use me powerfully is to be able to forgive myself. And that was the hardest, and really that actually could have a whole episode on its own topic. So
real quick, one second here, Jay. 3 words. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead. Well, it's something Matthias just said. It struck a chord in me. Think of all the people out there that want to blame God. Think of all the people that want to blame God, and then like all of a sudden life starts going good again. It's like, oh, okay, God, sorry, thank you so much. Rather than blaming God, how about blaming yourself or blaming the adversary? And that always blows my mind, how people want to blame God for something bad that's going on in their life. How can you blame him?
Well, he's easy
forgiveness later.
He's pretty easy to blame because he's God. I mean, I understand why people blame him, but
when you put yourself in the enemy's path, and you've been riding the enemy's train, of course, bad things are going to happen. How can you blame God? You should blame yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So the last thing, Matthias, we got 30 seconds left, so I just want to say briefly, we might have to talk about doing another show like this, which is forgiving yourself. I mean, it really is another show, because I could talk about that I could talk about what I've learned from that for an hour at least,
Right, and me and Jen could fill the other hour.
Good.
I was just saying.
I just want to get this out. Thank you for being part of True Story Live. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, AJ, for calling in. And tune in 3 weeks, True Story Live. Thank you for listening. All right. Go ahead, Matthias.
Oh, I was just saying that me and Jen and AJ calling in can take care of the other hour.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, what do you think? What do you think, Jen? Should we do a part 2 on this forgiveness thing? It seemed to go pretty well. We didn't get a whole lot of callers that wanted to add their stories in, but we had our stories a little bit, and then Daniel, and so it went fast.
Let's promote the show.
Yeah, we could have what we were saved from type of episode, where we each talk about kind of the stuff we did before we were saved and what he saved us from and the forgiveness that we got, and showing how those who have been forgiven much love much.
Yeah.
I think once that forgiveness comes in, we get that conviction. Because when we start looking back at our lives and start going, oh my gosh, all right, so this person did me wrong, and back to what Jen was saying, well, all these people did me wrong, I've never forgiven them. Even though she did, but there's a lot of people out there that have not given forgiveness.
Yeah. I was going to say too, this it's another leg of this topic. It's just a lot of the division that's happening among Christians as well with the flat Earth situation, and just truth right now. People trying to find truth. I'm very concerned, I'll be honest, about where it's going, and it's not going there with everybody, but it seems to be. It just is really grieving my heart that people are just getting kind of nasty on both sides, the globe and the flat Earth, and believers at each other's throat. It really upsets me.
Rooters. Don't forget the Hebrew rooters. They've been born recently. Well, they've been actually born in the past. We were dealing with this back in 2011, 2012, 2013 with this, also this rebirth of Old Testament. They think they're Israelites, and they're not.
Yeah.
Those days are over. Jesus came to fulfill that law. And what we're dealing with now, and I'm actually dealing with the person with this right now, with the whole Hebrew roots thing. And I forgive them. I get it. You know, it's not even, I don't even have to forgive them. But what we're seeing here within the Flat Earth movement is this rise of this Hebrew roots movement. And all of a sudden, now they used to be Christian, now they're not. This is the thing. And I was talking to a ninja school. We're talking about this. Well, exactly. But some of them were, and they've been swayed. And this is the whole thing, though. What does the Bible talk about in the end times? An Antichrist, correct?
Yeah.
We're going to have the Antichrist. Well, what is Hebrew roots? Antichrist.
Well, yeah.
These people are falling. Well, yeah. Well, what they're doing is they're falling for Antichrist, New World Order propaganda.
Well, right, but every religion is gonna fall for the Antichrist when he comes. Like even the false Christians are gonna believe he's Jesus returning.
Yeah, sadly, yes, you're right. But we're seeing this trend. We're seeing this Antichrist trend, and it's coming from people who once claimed to be Christian.
Well, you use the key word there is claim, because you might become a believer, and you might not be as strong in the way you feel about certain things, or you might even not go to church, or there's all kinds of things a believer can stop doing. But you're talking about someone that claims to be a Christian, but then they want to go back under the law in the first place.
Right.
I mean, in terms of Hebrew rooters.
And you and I have had a very long conversation about this. All fair.
Oh, I know we have, because basically what happened to me is I discovered Flat Earth, and then I joined a bunch of Flat Earth groups, and then I had about a month where it was like the golden age. It was like everyone was nice and kind, and then it was like something happened. It seemed like overnight. I know it wasn't overnight, but it seemed like overnight. All the rooms that I was a part of, except for Flat Out Grace, they were all starting to slowly be poisoned and taken over by the Hebrew rooters.
Yeah.
I'm so glad Linda started that group. I'm so glad she did that.
Oh, me too. I mean, it's literally a safety haven in the storm, away from other groups that are. I mean, there are moderators in some of these other groups, and there are a few exceptions, but for the most part, Hebrew rooters come in there, they sow division, they divide people, they get people mad at people, and then they don't even really know why they're mad. And it's horrible. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I'm honored to say that Flat Life, which you're a part of, every moderator in there and the admins were all Christian.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get, if anyone steps out of line, guess what? You're removed. And I just removed someone very recently who, well, I was very surprised, but we removed them.
Sometimes you are surprised. Some of them are true. Some of them are. It even happens in Flat Out Grace. Someone comes in and they answer the pin. They read the pin post, and then they answer the questions in the correct way, and they might float for a week or two. As I always tell Linda, it always comes out. You don't have to try to lay in wait to surprise them, because they're going to reveal themselves eventually. There's a subject that comes up. I promise you, every time. There's going to be a subject that comes up where their Hebrew rooter mentality comes through by the way they respond in posts. Every single time it comes out. And then as soon as you... What?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Oh, you're done. I was going to kind of capitalize on what you were saying.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't hear what you said. You said something. I didn't hear what it was.
No, I was starting to say something, and I stopped because you were still talking.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead, buddy.
I was going to say, this is God's life water, some of these groups, And, well, then what happens when you throw oil into water with gasoline, that always rises to the top.
It sure does.
So these people rise to the top, and you quick skim it, and throw them out, and you're back to water.
That's all you do. And frankly, it's a lot of work for Linda to run the group the way that she does, I mean, she's at it all the time, and she has. I'm a moderator in there, and I help with it, but I'm not on there. I'm not on there 24 hours a day, obviously. I mean, you know, I do what I can in there, and but it's so important, and it takes a lot of work to keep the balance in it, you know. But it's well worth it, in my opinion, because it is a haven.
You do see that Antichrist jargon that's getting thrown around, this mindset. This is what it needs. It needs people to say, "Oh, Jesus is a sun god." You know, Constantine came along and added this. Hold on a minute. Jesus was around before Constantine. Where are you people coming up with this crap? There's more proof of Jesus than Napoleon. So what are you coming up with it?
To be honest,
the Hebrew rooters stick with the Old Testament, correct? How many verses in the Old Testament predicted and told us there was a Savior coming, God's Son? It's in the Old Testament.
Well, Jesus said himself, "Search the scriptures, for in them that you think ye have eternal life, but they are they which testify of me." You know, so
yeah, that's right.
There's Jesus on every page in the Old Testament, and it's quite funny that they try to twist it the way that they do.
Hey, Matthias, I'm gonna get a hold of Jay and get a hold of you. I was speaking with Sean Ninja School about this, and I think we need to do a show on the Antichrist movement. And of course, we're going to bring up the Hebrew rooters. And I would love to have you both on the show.
I mean, I'm in. Let me know when it is. You know, I'll be out the next. I won't be around. We leave next Sunday it's Sunday morning, and I'll be in Michigan for 2 weeks, and I'm not going to be able to be on any show.
If you're coming through Pennsylvania, you better let me know.
I would if I was coming through there. I would, and I'm going to make it a point. You know, right now I'm a little limited. You know, I take care of my 92-year-old grandmother, so I can't take long trips alone right now. But there will be a point where, I mean, it's long overdue, because I was doing this. I was taking care of her when I started to meet new people all over the place, like-minded believers that also believe in the correct cosmology. And now I want to meet all these people, you know, because
I'll tell you what would have been nice, Jay, if you would actually came to that anti-geoengineering / chemtrail conference that me and Ninja were at. Because
I know,
we didn't feel in our element, so to speak. And Sean and myself kept saying that to each other. We just didn't feel like we were with the right crowd. And they're great people and all, but we were around too many New Agers. So to have you, if we would have had you there, it would have been great.
No, it would have been. We would have had a blast. Yeah, that's not really my age. I mean, no offense. I don't focus on the chemical engineering thing, because there's, in my opinion, there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, I focus on other things, but as far as the flat Earth thing is concerned, or being involved in something like that, I mean,
there's plenty we can do about your, basically crime against humanity, known as an act of terrorism, known as geoengineering. It comes to legislation and waking up enough people, but even to have you there would have been cool.
Yeah, I got you. I see the point you're making, and I'm up for that. Brothers. Yeah, absolutely. That's all. And in fact, I listened to you guys talking about it, and I thought it was cool. You guys talking about how you had known each other. You've been on radio shows together and all that, but you'd never met in person. It was cool hearing you guys talk about the moment when you actually met each other, and how easy it was for you. And I anticipate the same thing with a lot of people. I'm not even worried about it. Like, making sure to meet someone in a public place because you're worried they're going to do something to you. I almost already know, that these people that I'm talking to so much that I have never seen face to face, I don't worry about them at all.
No, it's like you can sit down in the car and just pick up the conversation and be like, "Hey, what's going on? How you doing?" It's like, there's no trust issues there. It's just like, you know where you're at. You know, actually, you have more trust. Like, you know, I got out of the car many times, left my wallet sitting in there. I knew he was. You know what I mean?
I knew steal your wallet. Yeah, absolutely.
No, of course not. But you know what?
Give your PIN number. Tell them somebody. Yes.
But I'll tell you what, the cool conversations that you can have on phone are one thing, but when you're sitting there next to your brother, and like it's just a little bit more intense, and it was a blessing. It really was, and I had so much fun with him. He's an awesome.
That's awesome.
He's so down to earth. He is such a driven Christian. I mean, he makes me like shimmer. I'm telling you, Sean is an amazing guy. He's so humble, and I try to be humble as well. And it's like as soon as I picked him up, like I didn't know where to pull in at. So I'm like, I get right by his driveway, and I'm on a main road. I'm like, and I don't want to hold up traffic, and I see this guy waving. I'm like, there he is. I pull in his driveway, and I get out, give him this big old hug. I'm like, you ready? He's like, yeah. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
And as soon as we got in the car, it just, from there out, we were just kicking it the whole time. It was awesome.
I totally believe you, because that's the way it is. It's like you said, you're more comfortable around a person like that. It's like something in the views themselves connect you. You know, even in some ways more than just like going and meeting a Christian. And this is unfortunate. I really mean this. It's unfortunate to think that you can trust someone that believes in flat earth more than you can just someone that claims that they're a believer.
Well, he's both.
Yeah.
He's hardcore.
I know.
Like I said, he's a hardcore awake Christian, and
he totally is. Yeah, absolutely.
And I wish he lived closer to me. I'd be hanging out with him probably every other day.
What state does he live in? What state?
He's in Jersey. He's about a little over an hour away from me.
Oh, that's nothing. An hour's not much. I see. You're in Pennsylvania. It's probably 10 hours to where you live.
Well, depending on time of day and how stupid people want to drive, that whole drive aspect comes into play, because people are overly fluoridated, overly vaccinated, overly medicated, and they don't know how to handle a car. So, you know, you'll listen to the traffic report, and you're heading down I-76, and all of a sudden there's an accident. It's like, what, you just can't all go straight? It's that hard for you to go in a straight line, you know? But no, someone's got to get in an accident. Now you have a 35-minute backup. So that always comes into play when you're trying to get over to Jersey.
Yeah, let alone a stalled car. You wouldn't believe how much traffic will back up, and you finally get to it. You think, oh, it must be a huge accident. Someone ran out of gas. People are stopping to look at it. So ridiculous. Probably one of the coolest things I heard Sean say to me was after we did our speeches, and there was supposed to be an after party, and we all went there, you know, right afterwards. So it was kind of like early. It was like, you know, 4:35 o'clock in the evening, and then we were going to head back. We got out of there to get something to eat. And he was like, "Just take me back to the room." He's like, "I don't want to go back there." Like, what do you mean? He's like, "I'm just not feeling it." He's like, "I feel out of place." I was like, "You know what, brother? I hear you. I do too." So I dropped him off. He went and got a shower, went to call his girl real quick. I went back over, hung out for a little bit, and then went back to the room. And then after that, when I got back to the room, man, it was on. His buddy actually came over, and it was like, it felt so much better. It was like, okay,
you know, being in, hanging out, having a good time, and we didn't feel out of place anymore.
Well, now the geoengineering crowd is not necessarily believers. I mean, I'm asking. That's not a statement.
Well, I'm not talking bad upon anybody there, but
no, of course not. I'm asking your opinion.
There's a lot of people there that are more like in New Age, you know, or spiritual. Okay, that's great. So you're lawless.
Yeah.
You know, they the smells going around in that room was not necessarily what we were into doing. The after party thing. You follow me?
Yeah. Yeah.
We felt we were out of place. That's all. But I mean, we felt in place, but at the same time, we kind of stood on the outside. And there was a few other people there, kind of, with us, full in that aspect. And, and it went well. All it went well, and I really had a good time with them.
I saw I already commented on, you posted on YouTube, and I made a comment on your YouTube where you posted your speech, and I thought you did a very good job.
Thank you. I saw that.
I thought it went.
First one.
I know. I love that. I love it when someone posts something, and I get a notification for it right away, and I go on there. I'm the first commenter. Awesome. I love it.
I actually there's a woman named Sharon, and she's with Bye Bye Blue Sky, and I've had her on my show before, and I was actually honored to meet her in person down in Philadelphia last May, and she's a hardcore Christian as well, and a wig.
She is?
Yes, a Sharon Marsh, and I reached out to her, and I said, listen, I'm speaking at this event. I said, I don't want to talk about chemtrails. I said, I do, but I don't. I said, what can I do? Because all these speakers are there. Why do I got to, he's like, think about the spiritual attack. I said, funny, because I was thinking about doing that. She's like, I know
that her?
Job.
Was that her in the audience that was talking about the spiritual attack?
No. That was actually one of the other speakers. That was Risha.
Oh, that's cool.
No. My fault. That was Raphael. And she said, she goes, oh, it's spiritual. I'm like, yes.
I got you. Yeah, I heard that.
That's a new age spiritual.
Sure. I got you.
But Sharon put me in place. She's like, you need to talk about the spiritual attacks. I'm like, I actually was thinking about doing that. And that's what I kind of did. And you heard my speech, and I just posted Sean's speech today. But I stood there in the satanic Illuminati, and then I was pointing down. I talked about how the spiritual attacks hurt your soul. I said, when I pointed down, I said, this is coming from, the God of this world. I said, and then I pointed up, I said, not our Heavenly Father, the God of this world. And I pointed it back down. So I wanted, if that didn't make a statement without me coming out saying, hey, better, get your lives straight, they knew where I was coming from as being a Christian.
Oh, I think they did. But I knew that, and they were fairly receptive too. That's another thing. There was a group that was fairly receptive to, what you were saying. So that's a good scenario right there. I understand why you wouldn't want to go back and you didn't feel comfortable and all that or whatever, but I didn't watch his video yet. You posted that. I haven't had a chance to watch that one yet, but I'll go and watch his as well. But let's wrap this up. I could talk all night, but let's say that we're gonna when I come back from the break. So Matthias, I won't be back on True Story Live for Simulcast until June. I'll pull up my calendar real quick. Hold on 1 second. So it'll be July. It'll be July 8th.
Wow, nice vacation.
Well, it's 2 weeks, but see, we're leaving next Sunday during the day, so I'll be traveling next Sunday, and then we'll be in Michigan for 2 weeks. So I'll come back on Sunday, but I don't think I'll be home in time to do a show on the 1st. It's possible. It's possible. I would.
We have Jen and Brenda.
Well, Brenda's taking she's off for the summer. She wanted to spend time with her family and stuff. So it's just Matthias and Jen. Now, if they want to do a show, I'm happy to allow Matthias and Jen. Well, Jen dropped. Her phone call dropped, unfortunately. But
what I could do for you is when you're not doing your shows, let me know. I will go ahead and upload a rebroadcast of some of your older shows. You can do a rerun.
Okay. Well, I'll let you know now then, because it'll.
No. I'm going to forget. Just text message, text me, or Facebook message me over the shows that you want, and I'll go ahead and download them and re-upload them, and then I got you. But we'll be back live July 8th if you don't hear from me. July 8th is when I'll be back, and we'll go back to regular scheduled programming for the rest of the summer.
That sounds good on my part.
God willing.
Right. Anything works for me. Any opportunity the Lord provides to talk about and share His word, hey, I'm there. So, no.
Okay.
Whatever works.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you being part of the show. It was awesome. I love the after show thing. I wouldn't mind it if sometimes we do the regular show for 2 hours and then we do the after show for an hour. That would never bother me, but I don't know if here's the problem though. If you want to do an upload and run it as a live broadcast, you can't be over 2 hours. So you can do whatever whenever you want. Of course, it's your show, but if you ever want to do a replay of your show, it's got to be right on the 2 hour dot. Bang. Right, I understand that, but people can go to the archives. The archives are as long as they need to be. I mean, if you go over the 2 hours, they can hear the archives. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm saying if you wanted to do a rebroadcast of this, I don't know if we could. I've tried to do it before, and Blogtalk would not let me upload a 2.5 hour show. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying for a rebroadcast. Yeah, that's not. Yeah. I'm talking about people being able to play the whole show, including the after show. Oh, no. Yeah, they can go want to listen to the rebroadcast and find the archives. Yep.
Right, and if you ever wanted to rebroadcast it, you could send it to me, and I could cut it at the 2 hour mark to where the 2 hours is what played. And
yeah, I can do that too.
So
I can re-upload it. Well, here's now, let me ask you. We are also able to now broadcast over TuneIn Radio, which is a really nice app, and it's a very popular app. So, Jay, when you get back from the vacation, I'll show you how to do that. Cool. That sounds cool. Now you can make a show longer, right? If you all you have to do is set the, if you want, in other words, if you wanted to run a 3 hour show, you could do it that way. I mean, schedule it for longer if you wanted to. No, you want to schedule for 2 hours, 120 minutes. Then you have an hour overtime. Overtime. Perfect. All right. So it wouldn't ever be any longer than 3 hours, even if you were still talking, it would just stop. Right. 3 hours. Okay. That's why when you get to the top of the hour, if you have a 3 hour show planned, let your listeners know, hey, you need to call on this number because at 11 o'clock, this is going to cut off on the internet, but you can continue to listen live if you call in to 319-527-6092. Totally. Love it. All right, guys. Matthias, I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for doing the simulcast from Talking Doctrine. All the listeners in the chat room, good night. I hope you have a good couple weeks for while I'm on vacation. Matthias, I appreciate you as always.
Right.
Well, I appreciate it.
And we will talk before you head out on Sunday. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll talk to you. For sure. Matthias, God bless you, brother.
God bless you, AJ. Always a pleasure. All right.
Absolutely. AJ, thanks a lot, buddy. Yeah. God bless you too, Jay.
Take care. God bless, guys.
Appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right, guys. Still working on trying to get this audio worked out to where it doesn't have to be from the phone to the microphone. Try to get it to go straight through. Let's see. Dave C., if you're still around, you have an invitation to join me on air anytime, and we'll have a discussion. Also, RL, I'm guessing you're RL Flair. I'm guessing you are a universalist, but I don't know. You also have an invitation to come on air. So if you'll email me at talkingdoctrine@gmail.com, I'll set it up to where we can discuss our differences in doctrines, especially if you think Christians are worshiping Moloch. Now, I myself don't like using the term Christian because most of my life I was a Christian and I wasn't saved. So I don't like the term because there's so many unbelieving Christians out there. But it looks like you're saying that you're not a Christian for a little bit of another reason. So I'd love to talk to you about it. Sounds like a great episode, and people will be able to at least hear where you're coming from, but be willing to talk about your view. And if it is something as universalism, I would love to show you the verses on why that's not true. But either way, it was a pleasure. The conversation was edifying. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Probably not going to broadcast tomorrow. Probably just going to do the Liberty Bible study on Tuesday and the talk and study on Thursday this week. Just so I can keep working on my hands-on ministry. So we will do the Bible reading tomorrow. Again, we had a storm come through today and was unable to broadcast anytime before now. So I've actually got to get to bed because I've got to get up in less than 7 hours now. Well, right at 7. I got to get up at 5:30. So I would love to fellowship and chat with you guys more, but I need some sleep. So if you guys will pray for my rest, and Lord willing, we will see each other, talk to each other on Tuesday. We can absolutely be unsaved. A true believer can't be unsaved, Derek. But I'm not sure. I'm just jumping in a conversation. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So we will call it a night. And I pray that the Lord keeps you safe, healthy, and focused on Him. So take care. God bless and good night.